Coming up on UFC Tonight, it's a tale of two titles at stake this week in Chi-Town. Former light heavyweight champ Rashad Evans seeks his return to glory. But will Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis trip up his run for another shot at the belt? We'll size up these two collegiate wrestlers turned sluggers to see who will rise and who will fall. Then with Mark Munoz out with an injury, it's Chael Sonnen versus Michael Bisping. These two can certainly talk the talk, but who will walk the walk and take on the elusive Anderson Silva for the middleweight championship of the world? And we'll hear from Dana White and get his thoughts on the Chicago card. Ariel Helwani gives us the latest on Mark Munoz's injury, and Jay Glazer sticks his neck out for Uriah Faber. Watch out.
Pat Barry making a statement.
This is UFC Tonight. Let's hit it.
And Jim Miller, despite the early onslaught from Galard, locks up the submission. Jim Miller back in the UFC win column in a big way.
Welcome to UFC Tonight, the official news and information source for everything you need to know about the biggest MMA organization in the world. I'm Todd Harris alongside former UFC lightweight contender, featherweight contender, and now well-reviewed sports analyst Kenny Florian. You're just back from Nashville. How were the fans in the Music City?
Man, I had a great time over there. Just excellent night of fights. I mean, knockouts, finishes. The one that went 15 minutes was a complete war. So had a great time in Nashville, and yeah. Good to be back, though.
We'll get your reviews a little later on in the show. The UFC returns to the Windy City with a card stacked with title implications. The main event is the one we'll focus on first. Rashad Evans faces fast-rising light heavyweight star Phil Davis. Depending on who wins, they could be facing John Jones for his belt in the spring. Let's look at the tail of the tape for this one, Kenny. What are your thoughts on these two wrestlers now turned strikers?
Yeah, this is a very interesting fight. Two very high-level wrestlers. Rashad Evans has the edge with his striking, very fast striker, definitely has big-time power. Phil Davis has a different striking style, tends to use more leg kicks, sets up his takedowns very well with them, and he also comes from a better wrestling pedigree. He is a national champion, so this fight is very, very interesting.
Well, Kenny, they come from very similar backgrounds. Let's talk and look at some of their most recent fights in our UFC Day Against segment presented by TaxSlayer.com. Kenny, next week in Chicago, who has the advantage going into this fight?
Well, you know, Rashad Evans has more experience than Phil Davis. He's been able to transition into the wrestling game a little bit better, despite not having that wrestling pedigree that Phil Davis has as a national champion. He also has better striking. If Phil Davis has been working on that transition, again, he's been out for almost a year. Who knows what he's been working on in that time? He can go in there and maybe have improved his striking so much that he's going to give Rashad Evans a lot of trouble. He also has the reach advantage, which can pose some problems for Rashad. So this is a very, very difficult fight to predict.
We caught up with Phil Davis earlier this week to get his thoughts on his upcoming bout with Rashad and the potential title talk that comes with it.
What's going to make the fight between me and Rashad such an interesting matchup is that we both come from similar backgrounds. He comes from wrestling background, I come from wrestling background, but we both have very unique styles in mixed martial arts. So I think it'll be a pretty good style clash. A lot of people that don't really understand how we actually fight don't see it that way, but I think it'll be pretty exciting. Definitely, Rashad is a step up in competition. He's a former champion. He's very skilled, and he's in the top 5 opponent. I don't think he's unbeatable. I don't think he's better than me. Dana White says, Phil, it's time for you to fight for the title. All right, cool. Guess what? I'm fighting for the title. That's what I'm doing. Whoever has the belt has to fight me, and they're not fighting anybody else. Till then, I don't care what goes on. My greatest strength as a fighter is definitely my mental ability to look past what might seem as a daunting task or what might seem impossible. I just take myself to another level mentally.
These numbers, courtesy of Fight Metric, highlight Davis's aggressiveness and elusiveness. He has had a successful takedown in every one of his UFC fights. He controls the fight over 60% of the time. And Davis is at the top of the list in avoiding significant damage. On the other side, Rashad has landed more takedowns than any other light heavyweight in UFC history with 45 successful attempts. That makes him 8th all-time in the UFC. When it comes to striking, he goes to the head a lot, connecting 83% of the time. That's 30% more than Phil Davis. Now, the other big fight of the night was supposed to be Chael Sonnen against Mark Munoz, but Munoz is out with an injury, and Michael Bisping is in. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape for this one, Kenny. You've only had a short time to digest this fight. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, we all know that Chael Sonnen loves to use his wrestling. That's where he does his best work. He gets in on your legs, he'll pick you up, and he'll slam you right on your head. Has excellent ground and pound. Mike Bisping is a guy who likes to keep it on the feet. He has high volume striking. He likes to go to the head, he goes to the body, a lot with his hand strikes. And he's one of those guys, he likes to stay very active on the feet, and he's going to want to keep this fight on the feet against Chael Sonnen.
Chael has his takedowns. Bisping has his strikes. Kenny, let's take a look at each of them in our Fuel TV Strike Zone.
Well, you know, Chael Sonnen's double leg is phenomenal. He is great up against the cage. And look at the timing on this. As Brian Stann goes to use that leg kick, he times it perfectly, changes his level, and drives. You notice he does not stop driving. Mike Bisping, he likes to pressure you with his footwork, and then he just throws a lot of strikes to the head. He'll go to the body, and he likes to stay very active. But it's his footwork that sets up all his boxing techniques, and he is very good with that, and is going to need that against Chael.
More numbers courtesy of Fight Metrics. Sonnen dominates his opponents and controls them over 80% of the time, making him #1 in the UFC. Also, he has never been outstruck in a fight, which should make things interesting with Bisping, because Bisping ranks among the most active strikers the UFC has ever seen. He is 4th all-time with 746 significant strikes landed. His takedown defense will be tested against Sonnen, and he has shown good skills in this department. He defends 65% of attempts against him. Rounding out the card in Chicago is another middleweight fight with Damian Maia against Chris Weidman. Kenny, your thoughts on this one?
Man, this is another great fight. Chris Weidman has a lot of potential, I think. Comes from a very good wrestling background, Division I wrestler. He's also very dangerous on the ground, very good with his ground and pound, very good submissions. But Damian Maia, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert, multiple-time world champion. So 2 grappling styles, but 2 very different styles.
Always going to be exciting. Last week, we asked you to go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/FuelTV to vote on our poll question. You guys answered again big time. So the question was, what should Jose Aldo do next? And close to 50% of you said he should hold out for a super fight with Frankie Edgar. Now here's the poll question for this week. Who has a better shot at defeating Anderson Silva? Chael Sonnen, Michael Bisping, or neither? Silva will keep his belt. Again, go to facebook.com/FuelTV to vote. We'll have the final results for you next week. But you can track the results every day, every hour, every minute on our webpage. Coming up, the Prez Dana White chimes in on Chi-Town. We'll show you how Jim Miller and Pat Barry played their way to victory in Nashville. Ariel updates the ongoing saga of Chael, Silva, and now Dana. Plus, Jay Glazer gets schooled by Uriah Faber again. This is UFC Tonight. UFC Tonight is brought to you by TaxSlayer.com. Everyone receives a maximum refund guaranteed with TaxSlayer.com.
Showing big power, big chance. These guys are game. Pat Barry making a statement. These guys are going at it. Jim Miller back in the win column in a big way.
Welcome back to UFC Tonight, where there were some fireworks in Nashville last Friday night. Some big wins for fighters who needed them. And Kenny, Melvin Guillard came out with a barrage, but it was Jim Miller who ended up on top.
Yeah, Melvin Guillard started out looking very sharp with his striking. And Jim Miller really had to have a big-time gut check. Came back from getting knocked down. Melvin Guillard looked very on point with his counter wrestling, but he got a little too aggressive, and it was that flying knee right there that opened him up to a takedown. And right once they hit the ground, Jim Miller was all over him, and he got the back and did not let Melvin Guillard get out of there, securing the rear naked choke for the big win.
Another big win came from the heavy-handed Pat Barry. Kenny, you were there in Nashville. What did you think of Pat Barry's performance?
This is another comeback. That seemed like it was the theme for these 2 fights. You know, Pat Barry found himself in some trouble. had some trouble really finding his range and was getting taken down in this fight against Christian Moorcraft. Got taken down off the leg kick early, got taken down again up against the fence. Moorcraft almost secured this straight armbar. Pat Barry was showing that he definitely improved his submission defense. Slipped that punch by Moorcraft and came with a huge left hook. Looked like a young Mike Tyson or Smoking Joe Frazier here, and finishes the job on the ground with a huge right hand. Brutal.
Miller and Barry definitely showing some resilience in their fights.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, they were very strong. Right before we left Nashville, our Ariel Helwani got the chance to catch up with the president, Dana White, and he shared his thoughts on the upcoming card in Chicago and the following week's event in Las Vegas.
Next Saturday night, the UFC returns live and free on Fox. You've got a great triple header. Chael Sonnen said that he is 100% certain, he will guarantee it, that even if he wins this fight, Anderson Silva won't fight him. Do you think that's just Chael being Chael?
Absolutely. I 100% right here now guarantee you that if Chael Sonnen wins that fight, Anderson Silva will fight Chael Sonnen this summer.
And will it take place in Brazil?
Probably.
Let's talk about the main event. You got Rashad Evans fighting Phil Davis. Is it 100% certain that if Rashad wins, he will get a title shot?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get injured, he will get the next title shot at John Jones. He's the guy who gets the shot. He's been waiting for a long time, and he's the one that deserves it right now.
And you told UFC Tonight recently that Dan Henderson turned down an opportunity to fight Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. Where does he now fit in the 205-pound picture?
Well, should Rashad get hurt in this fight and not be able to do it, I would probably put Dan Henderson in the fight next.
All right, and then the following week, the train just keeps moving along here. You've got UFC 143, Nick Diaz versus Carlos Condit. This is a fascinating fight.
I know there's a lot of people out there that hate Nick Diaz, and I know there's a lot of people out there that love Nick Diaz.
Do you think he has learned the lesson? Do you think he has matured since what happened late last year when he lost the title shot?
I don't think that this is a case of immaturity. I think this is a case of this is the way this guy is built. This is the way he doesn't think like anybody else. He doesn't act or react like anybody else. He's a completely different animal, man. It's like, I'm telling you, it's like nothing I've ever seen before in the fight business.
He's almost like the anti-hero, and people are really responding to him. Are you surprised that people can gravitate to a guy like that who really doesn't try hard to gain new fans?
No, because I think what you do get from Nick Diaz, whether you hate him or whether you love him, you are absolutely 100% intrigued by him. And this is a fight. This is a fight sport. These guys go in and they fight, and that kid is a fighter.
All right, final thing on that card. Obviously, it's for the interim welterweight title. It sounds like GSP's rehab is going very well. Is there a chance that the winner of that fight may have to fight one more time before fighting GSP?
GSP's rehab could not be going better. I kid you not. He texts me every day. He was texting me pictures of him kicking, of him doing things. He says, I am praying every night when I go to bed that Nick Diaz wins this fight.
I don't think George is hurt. I think he's scared. I think he's scared to fight everybody right now. What's up? Where you at, George?
I've never seen George St. Pierre hate somebody. He hates Nick Diaz. I've never seen him hate somebody. I've never seen him so motivated to fight somebody and to beat somebody as he is Nick Diaz.
Always great stuff from the president, Dana White. Wow, the state of the UFC right now couldn't be much better.
Yeah, a lot of good information there from Dana. What I found really interesting is the fact that he pretty much guaranteed that not only would Chael Sonnen fight Anderson Silva, but it would be in Brazil. That's crazy.
Coming up, Jay Glazer submits to Uriah Faber in UFC 101. Ariel has the real story on who's winning the trash talk show between Evans and Davis. And Kenny answers your questions and gives us his Chicago predictions. This is UFC Tonight.